How long do we need to wait before the next flight from Boca Chica? How looked the first Starship Orbital flight? Is SN15 going to be scrapped? I'll answer this and many other questions in this episode of Starship Updates. I've had a ton of stuff to do and that's why you haven't seen much activity from me, but I'm back and we have a lot of news to cover, so let's just jump right into it. As always, we'll begin our news with the oldest prototype in Boca Chica, which is the legendary Starship SN15. Lately, the weather wasn't too favorable to villagers and workers in Starbase, but they were able to find one sunny day to place SN15 on the test stand. This time the suborbital pad B was chosen. In the meantime, one of the workers was able to capture a stunning shot of the Raptor engines after the landing. Let's hope that he wasn't fired for this photo, because he risked his job so we could see this amazing view. As you can see, some engine parts are covered with some kind of coating, which could have occurred because of the metal oxidation. The combustion chamber of a Raptor engine is mainly made from copper with milled fuel channels. The whole bell is then covered in a layer of super alloy called Inconel. This material is supposed to be heat and oxidation resistant. If any of you watching this video has any experience with Inconel, you can leave your opinion about this coating. Unfortunately, this picture isn't of a good enough quality to be 100% sure if one of the COPV tanks have exploded during the landing. But if you look at the right hand side of the prototype skirt, it does kinda look like one of the tanks is missing. After the SN15 was placed on a test stand, it underwent a lot of inspections, which finally ended with all 3 Raptor engines being taken out. Of course, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are damaged, but it's the first time when the engine has actually survived the flight and they probably want to analyze them. There is a chance that they will be taken to the McGregor test facility, but that is highly unlikely. They will probably be taken to the SpaceX's Hawthorne facility. Unfortunately, even though the flight went almost perfect and Elon suggested the possibility of another flight, it looks like the SN15 won't ever fly again and it might even get scrapped, but I'll talk about this later. Okay, so SN15 won't fly again, what about SN16? Well, I don't have good news about SN16 either. This prototype still hasn't left the high bay and she still awaits her aero covers. Additionally, my close source told me, nothing official of course, that this Starship prototype won't conduct any test at all. Of course, scrapping an almost finished prototype probably isn't the most efficient idea. That's why some people think that it might eventually become a Starship monument, just like the legendary Starhopper, which has seen a lot of damage during his life. Remember when I've said that there wasn't a Starship update event in a long time? Twitter user Austin Barnard came to the same conclusion as me, as he asked Elon if he could organize such an event. He even suggested that Elon could stand in front of SN15 or SN16, which further proves my point, during the presentation. Elon responded to this tweet with a good idea. Personally, I can't wait for this event to happen. A ton of stuff has changed from the last Starship update and I'm really curious to see what Elon has up his sleeve. Okay, SN15 won't fly, SN16 might get scrapped, but SN17? Surely it will fly at least once, right? Well, it appears that both SN17, SN18 and SN19 will get scrapped. In the latest episode I've shown the SN17 midlock section, which had some of the tires broken off. Now they've cut a freaking hole in it. This means that we can be almost 100% certain that it will be scrapped. Before we continue, have you considered subscribing to my channel? As you can see, a huge portion of you watching my videos isn't actually subscribed. It's time to change that so you won't miss out on any of my Starship update videos. As you're there, you can also drop a like because those videos take a lot of time to produce. Anyway, back to the video. Okay, so you're talking about all these prototypes getting scrapped, so tell me which one will actually fly? No problem. According to some SpaceX's workers, it looks like the next flight from Boca Chica will be an Orbital one. Awesome news, right? Well, technically yes, but it can also mean that we won't see any flight attempt until August, but let's start from the beginning. Last week, SpaceX filed a document to FCC showing all frequencies needed for the telemetry data during the first orbital flight. You may say that it doesn't sound that interesting, I've also said that at first, but it looks like this document also has the information about the first orbital flight path and timestamps, so maybe let's give it a closer look. The launch attempt will of course occur from the Boca Chica. 169 seconds after the liftoff, the main booster engines will be shut down. 2 seconds later, we'll have a booster separation, followed by Starship's second stage ignition 5 seconds later. 8 minutes and 50 seconds after the launch, the Super Heavy booster should land. We'll come back to this later. 521 seconds after the liftoff, the second stage engines will be cut off, and finally 5420 seconds after the launch, the prototype will splash down into the ocean. This means that we will be in an extreme tension for a whole 90 minutes. Now, we have two interesting pieces of information in this document. The first one being the booster touchdown. The word touchdown often refers to landing on land, which could suggest that the Super Heavy booster, instead of landing in water, will try to land on some sort of landing pad. The problem is that such doesn't exist yet. When it comes to the second stage, it's a bit more clear. We've seen the powered targeted South Ocean landing before during the first test of Falcon 9 boosters. The landing should occur about 100 kilometers from the coast of Kauai Island, located in Hawaii. This place is often used to test different kind of missiles. Unfortunately, this means that the second stage probably won't be recovered at all, though some SpaceX workers should be on this island during the test. Okay, but why don't just land back in the Boca Chica? Well, the FAA would have never allowed for the first ever landing from the orbital speed to occur in a populated area. Elon tweeted that probably lots of prototypes with serial numbers 20+ won't survive the re-entry, and that's why the Kauai Island was chosen. When it comes to the Super Heavy, it will land about 32 kilometers from the Gulf of Mexico. If the flight will occur near the end of the year, according to Elon, at least one barge should be operational enough to allow for the booster landing. There is also a possibility that it will just fall straight into the water. I hope that no one is delusional enough to believe that the first orbital flight will occur before July the 1st. And yes, I know that during this test the Starship won't complete at least one full orbit, but it still fits some definitions of an orbital flight. Unofficially, the launch date is going to be net August, but it could also slip to September. Of course, this doesn't mean that there won't be anything interesting happening in Boca Chica. Before the flight, we'll see the first full stack, which will consist of Starship SN20 and Super Heavy BN3. Additionally, both of those prototypes need to undergo cryo and static fire testing. Other than that, we'll see the progress of an orbital launch tower, and maybe we'll even be able to see booster arm catch mechanism. In the meantime, we'll probably see new prototypes like SN21, BN4, etc, etc. There is also a slim chance that another SN15 flight will occur, but as far as I'm aware, it really doesn't make a lot of sense for SpaceX to conduct another flight of the same prototype. Speaking of new prototypes, let's take a look at some pictures of the new parts. Most of them come from the amazing photographer Starship Gazer. You can find a link to his Twitter profile in the description, and I highly recommend checking him out. Right now you can see the SN20 common section, which separates the liquid methane and liquid oxygen tanks. As you can see, this part has a ton of mounting points for a huge amount of thermal protection heat tiles. On the left hand side you can see the GSE-5 aft section. Other than that, the Starship Gazer was able to capture the common dome for SN21, but it appears as it will be repurposed to become the GSE-5 forward dome, as it doesn't have a place for the header tank. The only problem is that it looks like this section already exists, so the only thing for us to do is to sit and wait to see which part is which. What do you think will this common dome be used for? SN21 or maybe GSE-5? Leave your opinion in the comments. And how things are going with the ground support equipment tank? Was GSE-3 finally transported to the Orbital tank farm? Well, no, this tank appears to be fully finished. The GSE-4 is being built in the mid-bay, and we've even been able to spot the GSE-5 parts that I've shown earlier, but with all that, no tank has left the production facility. This may change soon though, as the orbital flight is just around the corner, which means that work around the GSE and booster really needs to speed up. Speaking of boosters, it looks like the BN2 and B2.1 tanks were completely scrapped. Right now, next to SN16 in high bay, we've been able to spot the Super Heavy number 3. This time, the assembly process should be pretty quick, because now they use the crane mounted on the ceiling of the high bay. We're not 100% sure whether the BN3 will have all 28 Raptor engines mounted, because as far as I am aware, you don't need so many of them when the Starship doesn't carry any cargo, but Mary Boca Chica gal was able to snap a photo, of the liquid methane fuel lines for the Super Heavy. If that's not enough exciting news for you, it also looks like she was able to capture a part that appears to have a cutoff for the grid fin mounting hardware. We have a really interesting few months ahead of us. When it comes to the Orbital launch tower, without which the launch wouldn't be possible, the progress is as always stunning. The Orbital launch mount received some new parts. Before that, we thought that the launch table will be placed directly onto the pillars, but it looks like it will be a bit higher than we anticipated. You can see this clearly on one of OEPL's animations. Additionally, another 3 orbital launch tower sections were finished and one was even transported and stacked in the test facility, making space to build another tower segment. Of course, to build such a thing, you need a huge crane. And here comes the LR11350 and LR11000. I've talked a bit about the first one in the previous episode, but as you can see, it has substantially grown in the last few days. It's not called Redzilla anymore, now it's Franken crane. As a reminder, this crane can lift 1315 tons at the maximum height of 150 meters. The LR11000 on the other hand is a bit weaker because it can carry only 1000 tons to a maximum height of 168 meters. I think that the Starbase should be renamed to the Crane Base. Eric, why do you alternate between Starbase and Boca Chica? Which one is it? Well, lately a few white letters have arrived at the production facility. As we could have accepted, they've turned out to be a huge Starbase sign. So I guess that now this place is officially named Starbase. The wall itself also has some RGB LED strips which look absolutely stunning during the night. Brendan worked in a collaboration with a user Boca Charts to combine all Starship testing from years 2020-2021 in one huge chart. During this time period we've had exactly 29 cryogenic tests, 23 static fires, 7 launches and 7 rapid unscheduled disassemblies. Don't forget to check out their Twitter profiles to see those graphics in full detail. Lastly, let's take a look at the Starship progress update tracked by Brendan on one of his graphics. As you can see, only BN3 received a few fuel tank sections. That's all I've got for you today. I hope that you've liked this video. If so, then don't forget to drop a like, leave a comment and share this episode with your friends, and I'll see you in another episode. Bye!